I have a right to face my accuser, Your Honor.
No, here's the thing. They want to throw around magic words like Jack and the Beanstalk. Oh, let me throw right to accuser, right to confront. Let me throw, I want a dismissal.
Somebody was trying to take my life that night, and I was just trying to save my life.
And I did.
And I ended up at the hospital. I called the cops.
All right, and let me stop you right there. Drug use.
No, ma'am.
You're telling me you never used any drugs?
No.
All right, Judge, he's on his way up. For your edification, this was a plea that we entered in front of Judge Angelini for 10 deferred.
Oh, no, I remember.
Okay, well, I'm just gonna fill you in on what's going on there today.
All right, what's happening today?
So I asked the DA if he would be willing to consider the 10 deferred. He said, let me think about it. We did enter the plea fully and officially on the 4 silent. Mr. Hernandez then tells me he wants me to put in a motion to dismiss for prejudice, and I told him there is no such thing because, you know, judges bust plea bargains all the time. That doesn't give you a right to dismiss. And so then he says, well, he wants a jury trial. And I said, well, we have entered the plea on the 4 silent, so the judge may or may not allow you to withdraw your plea. And then that's what he wants to speak to you about.
All right. All right, we can go on the record.
Yes, ma'am. I just didn't understand what I was signing. And
Excuse
She
me.
hasn't
I'm
started
sorry.
yet.
I'm sorry.
All right, and let me stop you right there. All this thing where people say they don't understand what they were signing, based upon what is the information that I've received, that first it was 10 years deferred and the judge denied it, and then it came back to a silent offer. Yeah, everybody understood. Court is calling 2023 CR 10221, State of Texas versus Joe Hernandez. Can I have parties announced for the record for the state?
Daniel Escobar for the state of Texas.
For the defense?
Suzanne Kramer.
All right, and are you Mr. Hernandez?
Yes, ma'am.
All right, a plea was entered in this case on, let me see what date is stamped on here, on April 22nd, 2024. According to the plea bargain agreement, punishments to be assessed at 4 years in the prison. There's a $1,500 fine, and the state is silent on the defendant's application. All right, with regards to the plea bargain agreement, the court, of course, does not have the PSI because we're coming back. Can someone tell me what his criminal history is?
Judge, I don't have a file on that.
Basically, I could be off on this, but my memory is some minor misdemeanors and no felony convictions.
Mhm. So counsel, do you wish to have a PSI done, or do you wish the court to make its ruling?
Honestly, Judge, based on his criminal history, and of course, you don't have the benefit of the interview with him, but Mr. Delgado and Escobar and I can fill you in on part of the, I think it was part of this plea bargain too, was evaluation for Mick. There are definitely some mental health issues going on. You can tell by reading the report, but you do not have the benefit of having that in front of you. But I do feel confident, of course, it's up to him to go forward today.
All right. So I am reading the police report, and based upon the police report that I've read that are in the stipulation, there is documentation of bizarre behavior. And I don't know, based upon the police report, if that bizarre behavior was drug induced or if there's some sort of mental health issues.
Which is why I think we had dual, right, with Mick, or was it just Mick?
I'm making yes, that was.
I mean, based on my time, and certainly I'm not an expert in any way, but I would tend to think it might have been both, but definitely some mental health issues.
All right, Mr. Hernandez, you want to raise your right hand for me, please? Do you solemnly swear and affirm the testimony you give will be the truth and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Yes, ma'am.
All right, you can lower your hand, state your name for the record.
Joe Hernandez.
All right, so Mr. Hernandez, have you ever been diagnosed with any type of mental health issues?
No, ma'am.
All right. Not even in your childhood?
No, ma'am.
Drug use?
No, ma'am.
You're telling me you never used any drugs?
No.
In a packed virtual courtroom where tension thickened the air like fog before a storm, the judge, a calm yet undeniably commanding figure draped in a robe that carried the weight of decades of legal authority, adjusted her glasses and surveyed the digital gallery with a gaze sharp enough to slice through the noise of the murmuring spectators, while the defendant, dressed in an orange jumpsuit and standing beside a visibly frustrated attorney, shifted uncomfortably, preparing once again to push forward the narrative he clung to with shaky certainty, the narrative that he believed freed him from the reach of the law. Yet from the moment the session opened, the judge's tone made it clear that whatever illusion he carried was about to shatter under the cold, unfiltered weight of reality as she began reciting the charges and procedural details with unwavering clarity, her voice steady and deliberate, a metronome of justice tapping against the defendant's increasingly desperate attempts to interrupt, because each interruption was met with a firmer, cooler response that demonstrated not irritation but mastery, the type of mastery earned through years of hearing every tactic, every excuse, every recycled claim designed to sidestep accountability. And as the defendant finally burst into his prepared monologue about sovereignty, maritime jurisdiction, personal autonomy, and the belief that the laws of the state held no power over him, the judge leaned back slightly in her chair, listening without a flicker of surprise, as though she had watched this very performance unfold 1,000 times before, allowing him just enough space to speak so that when she responded, the contrast between unfounded myth and verified law would be undeniable. And when she finally spoke, her voice dropped into a tone so precise, so grounded in authority, that the virtual courtroom fell silent, her words striking like carefully aimed arrows as she explained in painstaking detail that their courtroom operated under the jurisdiction of long-standing, constitutionally recognized law, law that did not shift simply because someone declared themselves independent from its reach, and that no amount of pseudo-legal terminology, no combination of misquoted statutes, misunderstood maritime codes, or misinterpreted legal doctrines would dissolve the fact that he was a person within the geographical boundaries governed by the court, a court with full authority to proceed. And as she dismantled every claim he presented, point by point, she did so without cruelty, instead wielding a kind of surgical precision that revealed how flimsy his arguments were, how deeply he had been misled, and how dangerous it was for individuals to rely on internet theories disguised as liberation. Yet the defendant refused to yield, raising his voice, demanding recognition of his chosen identity, insisting that the court acknowledge his filings and sovereign declarations, but the judge, maintaining the composure of someone who had spent years navigating storms greater than this, reminded him firmly that narrative was not law, belief was not immunity, and declarations did not override statutory authority. She continued, outlining how multiple higher courts, across states and at the federal level, had already rejected similar claims, noting that such arguments had consistently failed to produce freedom for those who used them and often resulted in harsher outcomes due to refusal to cooperate. And as she spoke, the attorney beside the defendant attempted to gently nudge him toward silence, understanding all too well that the judge's patience, though impressive, was not endless, and that the defendant's continued resistance would do nothing but worsen his already precarious situation. But he persisted, clinging to phrases he had memorized, the phrases he believed would grant him control. Yet with each repetition, the judge responded with the steady, unshakable authority of documented precedent, referencing rulings, judicial history, and statutory structures that had been in place long before his arguments ever surfaced, gradually guiding the courtroom toward the unavoidable conclusion that the law, consistent and carefully constructed, could not be undone by declarations of independence or sovereign identity. And as the reality of the situation finally began to seep through the defendant's expression, his earlier confidence slipped into fragmented frustration, his voice cracking under the weight of the truth he had spent so long avoiding, while the judge, maintaining her calm exterior, delivered the final, decisive explanation that the court would proceed as required, that his status did not place him outside the reach of justice, and that every individual, regardless of personal belief, was accountable to the statutes governing the jurisdiction they inhabited. And with that, as the courtroom absorbed the echo of her ruling, the defendant stood frozen, the magnitude of the moment pressing heavily onto him, the illusion of immunity dissolving completely, leaving only the stark reality of consequence behind, while the judge transitioned smoothly into the next procedural steps, demonstrating that justice, when properly anchored, does not bend to theatrics, and in this moment neither anger nor hostility was necessary, for the truth itself served as the final blow, the one that dismantled every claim and exposed the glaring contrast between sovereign mythology and the unyielding standards of the law. And as the virtual session continued, the spectators witnessing the exchange felt the gravity of the moment. The attorney beside the defendant exhaled with visible exhaustion, and the judge, unwavering, guided the proceedings forward, ensuring that the case would continue not under the illusion of sovereignty but under the rightful, established authority of the court, a reminder to all that while myths may spread quickly, the law remains grounded, structured, and immune to the fantasies of those who believe themselves beyond it, leaving the defendant standing in the harsh, undeniable light of accountability and the unshakable truth that reality, in the end, always prevails.